Did you know that we have a kind of like a picture of that in our church? If you go out into the narthex, there's an angel sitting on an empty tomb. I don't know if we always see it, because we always come in from that way, and sometimes we don't get out there. But, of course, there's Jesus, I believe, in the Garden of Gethsemane, but right next to it is the angel sitting on the tomb. This service, in all its glory and fumbling around, is my favorite service of the church year for lots of reasons. The contrast between light and dark, the readings, the music, the fire, the candles, the soul of this evening. That's what does it for me. The fact that it happens the night before, sort of like the big festivities of Sunday, and the fact that for better or for worse, this service is kind of like a secret. Or better yet, it's something more of an unknown. And that's even the way it is in the Bible, if you think about it. The night before the third day, no one is really at the tomb. In Jesus' own stories, the Gospels, right? The disciples have fled. Mary finds herself perhaps readying spices with Mary, the mother of James and Salome, so that they might go to the tomb tomorrow morning. If you think about it, it was at this time that perhaps the guards around Jesus' tomb began settling in for the night. In a few hours they would be asleep, and thus there would be no witness there, no witness to see the grave open, to see Jesus come out, to answer the women's question, who will roll away the stone for us? This is right now in the story. That's because we've just heard the gospel lesson tonight for tomorrow morning. But right now, something profound is happening in the story within the earth. Several years from that first night, Peter captures some of the truth of it in a reading that we heard this morning for Holy Saturday. He captures it when he writes, "For this reason, the gospel was proclaimed even to the dead, so that though they had been judged in the flesh, as everyone is judged, they might live in the Spirit, as God does." On the surface, one might read that or hear that and say, well, Peter was really speaking about the living who would come to believe. But tradition reveals to us that something more powerful was emerging from the tomb that night. Not just the Son of God who was raised from the dead, but the emergence of a God who raises the dead to new life. Perhaps then you can see that the last stanza of the hymn that we just sung speaks not just to us who will know God's consolation on a future Easter morning, but also the message to the dead, who upon this night so long ago exclaimed, "Soar, we now where Christ has led, following our exalted head. Made like him we rise, ours the cross, ours the grave, ours the skies." Think back to this morning when you may have heard in our liturgy that Christ, when he raised those from the dead, says, "Let us go hence. I did not make you for death, but for life. That is this night, a night like no other. And it is why all the liturgies to come this year flow out from this point. This night, when a single light pierces our darkness and says in its radiance to all, "Rise, my friends, and Christ will give you light." It is also why, we the happy few, yes, renewed our baptismal vows tonight. We know that Christ has been raised and dies no more. And that with Paul we stand together, trusting that if we have been buried with him in baptism, we have been united with him in death. And if we are united with him in death, we will also certainly be united with him in resurrection. That's what Paul says. And what is more, the resurrection that we commemorate this night gives not just a vision of new life in the afterlife. You see what I'm saying? It's not just about heaven tonight, although that's great, but of a new world here and now. A new world here and now in Bartlesville. Paul, in his letter to Corinth, says that if anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation, meaning that your baptism, that you just reaffirmed just now, remains and is somehow marvelously become the starting point for all our thinking and living that is left to us. And that thinking and that living is for God and with God in service to the kingdom that is coming into its own. We may not see right this moment how all of that will shake out for us or for the ways that life might look in the future, but the fact that resurrection has happened, the fact of God's grace in the face of the cross, becomes for us a mighty promise fulfilled for what our life ultimately holds. One that assures us that in the eyes of the foolish, things may appear to be lost. But to us who believe, we can be at peace, strengthened, as it were, to offer ourselves in service to him who died for us so that we might live to him. It is why we dare to say in response to Friday, "Lift high the cross." The words that Christ spoke about being lifted up, drawing the whole world to himself, are reflected in this most glorious sign. It is why we can bear it, and if you'll permit me, it's why we can wear it. Because we are marked by it on our foreheads. We are marked by it as his forever this night, the night that love came forth from the tomb.